Nubadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale, Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane, Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane, Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paskatyade Satarane. So, Dzień dobry, buenos dias, здравствуйте, etc. So we're going to read from the Bhagavad Gita today, as it is, Chapter 9, the most confidential knowledge, text number 3. Ashwadadana Purusha Dharmasyasya Parantapa Aprapyamam Nivartante Mrityu Samsara Vartmani. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Those who are not faithful in this devotional service cannot attain me. O conqueror of enemies, therefore the return to the path of birth and death in this material world. Srila Prabhupada's purport. The faithless cannot accomplish this process of devotional service. That is the purport of this verse. Faith is created by association with devotees. Unfortunate people, even after hearing all the evidence of Vedic literature from great personalities, still have no faith in God. They are hesitant and cannot stay fixed in the devotional service to the Lord. Thus, faith is the most important factor for progress in Krishna consciousness. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is said that faith is the complete conviction that simply by serving the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna, one can achieve all perfection. That is real faith. That is called real faith. As stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam 4:31-14, Yatha Dura Mula Ishe Chenena Shiptyanti Tatskanda Bujo Pashaka No Paharacha Jitendriyanam Tataiva Sarvanam Atuteja. By giving water to the root of the tree, one satisfies its branches, twigs, and leaves. And by supplying food to the stomach, one satisfies all the senses of the body. Similarly, by engaging the transcendental service of the Supreme Lord, one automatically satisfies all the demigods and all other living entities. Therefore, after reading Bhagavad Gita, one should promptly come to the conclusion of Bhagavad Gita. One should give up all other engagements and adopt the service of the Supreme Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead. One is convinced of this philosophy of life, that is faith. Now, the development of that faith is the process of Krishna consciousness. There are 3 divisions of Krishna conscious men. In the third class are those who have no faith. Even if they are officially engaged in devotional service, they cannot achieve the highest perfectional stage. Most probably they will slip after some time. They may become engaged, but because they haven't complete conviction and faith, it is very difficult for them to continue in Krishna consciousness. We have practical experience in discharging our missionary activity that some people come and apply themselves to Krishna consciousness with some hidden motive. And as soon as they're economically a little well situated, they give up this process and take to their old ways again. It's only by faith that one can advance in Krishna consciousness. As far as the development of faith is concerned, one who is well versed in the literatures of devotional service has attained the stage of firm faith is called a first-class person in Krishna consciousness. And in the second class are those who are not very advanced in understanding the devotional scriptures, but who automatically have firm faith that Krishna bhakti or service to Krishna is the best cause, and so in good faith have taken it up. Thus they are superior to the third class, who have neither perfect knowledge of the scriptures nor good faith, but by association and simplicity are trying to follow. The third class person in Krishna consciousness may fall down, but when in the second class, he does not fall down. And for the first class person in Krishna consciousness, there is no chance of falling down. One in the first class will certainly make progress and achieve the result at the end. As far as the third class person in Krishna consciousness is concerned, although he has faith in the conviction that devotional service to Krishna is very good, he has not yet gained adequate knowledge of Krishna through the scriptures like Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. Sometimes these third-class persons in Krishna consciousness have some tendency towards karma yoga and jnana yoga, and sometimes they're disturbed. But as soon as the infection of karma yoga or jnana yoga is vanquished, they become second or first-class persons in Krishna consciousness. Faith in Krishna is also divided into 3 stages described in Srimad Bhagavatam. First-class attachment, second-class attachment, and third-class attachment are also explained in Srimad Bhagavatam in the 11th canto. Those who have no faith, even after hearing about Krishna and the excellence of devotional service, who think that it's simply eulogy, find the path very difficult, even if they supposedly engage in devotional service. For them, there is very little hope of gaining perfection. This faith is very important in the discharge of devotional service. Ashvadadana Purusha Dharmasyasya Purantapa Aprapyamam Nivartante Ritu Samsara Vartmani. Those who are not faithful in this devotional service cannot attain me, O conqueror of enemies. Therefore, they return to the path of birth and death in this material world. Om Agyanatamanandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chaksur Umilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. If it's possible, please put on your video camera. It's much nicer to talk to a face than a name, unless it's the holy name. Of course, we have the holy names, but we have Das at the end. Thank you. Here, the word Shraddha is used, and as we know, Shraddha is the beginning of becoming conscious of Krishna. Shrad and Da. Shrad generally refers to the heart, and Da means where we put our heart. In other words, where we put our attention. There are many places in this material world to put our attention, and especially in Kali Yuga, there is those who are in charge of selling things or trying to sell things have become very expert at diverting people's attention to their product. Generally, people are attracted to sense gratification, and therefore, even to sell toothpaste, they have some attractive lady. Or man, or generally people are distracted by women and children and dogs or pets, animals. Especially cute little animals are very attractive because, as they say in English, the dog is a man's best friend. And unfortunately, in Kali Yuga, the dog may be man's only friend, supposed friend. So people have faith in something material. They believe that where they're putting their faith, where they're putting their attention, where they're putting their energies, they're going to get back love and appreciation. Just like Narada Muni, he went to a hunter and said, my dear hunter, that you're engaged in so many abominable activities. Not only you're a hunter, but you're also a thief. You're committing violence, you're stealing. Don't you realize that you're going to go to hell for this? Why are you doing this? He said, because I'm doing it for my family. So Narada Muni said, well, you're going to acquire so many sinful reactions for your activities. So is it possible that your family will share in your sinful reactions? That's only fair since you're doing it all for them. So the man said, of course, my family loves me. They'll certainly accept part of my sinful reaction. So he went to his wife and said, my dear wife, I've been informed that by a great saint Narada Muni that for all my sinful activities, stealing and robbing and doing other things, that I will acquire sinful reactions. So I'm just asking, since I'm doing this all for you and the family, would you be kind enough to accept some of my sinful reactions? And his wife said, well, actually, we're very happy to accept your money, but we're not very happy to accept your sinful reactions. That we'll leave for you. So then he went to his children and said, my dear children, I'm doing so many sinful activities to support you. Would you kindly accept some of the reactions? And they were very straightforward and said, get lost. And then he went to his dog and said, my dear dog, I'm doing so many sinful actions to support you and the family. Would you accept some of my sinful reactions? And then the dog bit him. And that was the end of his family life. So as I said before, a man is thinking she loves me or she loves me not. She loves me, she loves me not. And then finally he concludes that actually, unless she loves Krishna, she can't love me. Otherwise, if she doesn't love Krishna, she doesn't love me. She loves my money, if I have any. So the material world is a place where everyone is searching for love, family, society, and love. And there is some love, there is some society, there's some family, but it's compared to a drop of water in the desert. And therefore, Pakshi people in the material world, their faith is very small. They have faith, but they have faith in the drop of water. And as we all have experienced the material world, especially in this summer in Europe and America, has become like a desert, quite warm. So it's applicable that they're getting drops of water in the desert. So people are putting their attention because they're hoping to get some return from it. That's called faith. They're hoping to get some happiness and pleasure, which is all ultimately based on love. If it's not love for a person, it may be love for my stomach, but it's love for something. I have faith that if, as they say in Spanish, barriga llena, corazón contento. Nothing else works. If my stomach is full, my heart is satisfied. So here in this particular verse, Lord Krishna is explaining that our real problem in the material world is janma, mrityu, jara, vyadi. That even if we find in the heavenly planets something more closely applicable to love and society there, The heavenly planets, people in the modes of goodness, they live for a long time, but still they die. And the family is broken up, and one goes on to the next family in some species of life. So human life is meant to get out of the repetition of birth and death, of which, because of the illusory energy, we actually believe that we're going to be here for a long time. Although as I said before, that Brahma is thinking he's only going to live for a short period of time because he only has 150 trillion, 20 billion years left in his life. And according to an authority, the associates of Kamsa, whether it was Putana or Agasura, whoever it was, his cabinet, they declared that actually Brahma is no threat because he's in the forest meditating because he's afraid he's going to die soon. So he's trying to fix his mind on Krishna. So the path to liberation, as explains here, is not always appreciated, even by those who join the Hare Krishna movement, due to the illusory energy, as Srila Prabhupada once said. Well, he said a number of things. But one of the things he said is that one of the problems of the devotees in the Hare Krishna movement is that they're not sufficiently afraid of Maya. What to speak of being afraid of Maya, they have faith that Maya will give them what they want if they work hard enough for it. Therefore, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that there are four kinds of devotees: Chatur Vida Bhajante Mam Jana Sukritina Arjuna, Artha Jignasya Artharati Jnani Cha Bharatarshava. That four kinds of pious people approach him. They're pious because they approach Krishna, but as we know, generally speaking, most devotees approach Krishna out of distress. They hear that if they chant Hare Krishna, then Krishna will give them whatever they want, especially they'll get free from their distress. Now, distress is caused by sinful activities. Most people don't know that distress is caused by sinful activities. As a matter of fact, they think that happiness is caused by sinful activities. If you invited people to come to the Sunday feast and told them, please come to the Sunday feast, we're going to hear a lecture about fasting. And the Sunday feast will teach you how to look into the sun and get energy from the sun. There won't be any prasadam this week. There'll just be sun gazing. And we'll have a lecture on fasting. I don't think we'll have a very big crowd that week. Of course, it'll be easier for the cooks. They can also gaze at the sun. Therefore, generally speaking, most people think eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, that this is life. And to give these things up or to reduce them, that this is abominable. As Prabhupada points out, there is one Marquis of Jetland who was the governor of Bengal. And he came to Prabhupada's Scottish Church's College and gave a talk there. And Prabhupada was a student at that time. So later on, the Marquis of Jetland was a cultured gentleman. He went back to England and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada's disciples were preaching in England at that time when he was there. And he approached one of Srila Prabhupada's godbrothers and asked him, "My dear sir, can you make me a Brahmana?" So the Marquis of Jetland, the godbrother Srila Prabhupada said, "Yes, of course, no problem. But you have to follow four principles: no illicit sex, no gambling, no meat eating, and no intoxication." And the Marquis of Jetland said, "Impossible." So if one has faith in the material energy that to gratify the senses unrestrictedly will produce happiness, there's no chance of making any progress in actual devotional service because one has faith in something other than the material energy. Therefore, faith is created in the association of devotees, not just by associating with them, but by actually hearing about Krishna and their association, specifically their realizations about Krishna consciousness. Therefore, dadati pratigrinati goyam akiti prichati pumte bojayate chaiva shadvidam prati lakshana. In the association of devotees, our main conversation should be either giving devotees prasadam and accepting prasadam from them. The main gift that Prabhupada said is the gift of Krishna Bhakti, which we take from the devotees, we give to the devotees, and we take from them. And revealing the mind in confidence, another Krishna Bhakti means service to the devotees, and we take service from the devotees in love and devotion. And revealing the mind in confidence means we tell them our experience in Krishna consciousness. I know one senior devotee told me he wanted to keep friends with another senior devotee. And so when the senior devotee wanted to go to a movies, in order to keep his friendship, he went to the movies with him. Maybe to see Avatar, because it has a spiritual name at least. Unfortunately, Avatar movie is about the Mudha avatars, the fool avatars. So actual friendship with the devotees means to tell them what we've understood about Krishna consciousness in order to help them advance. And ultimately, the main purpose of our movement is smarta vyaksaratam vishnur, vismarta chatina kinchit, sarva vidini sedyasyur, etiyara eva kinkara. To always remember Krishna and never forget him. And the reason we want to do that is because if we're actually remembering Krishna with devotion, then we'll experience the love, the unlimited love and happiness that Krishna and his devotees have for each other. And that is the happiness we're actually looking for. Unlimited love, unlimited affection, unlimited awareness of how beautiful everyone and everything actually is. As I said before, one time I was in Dallas, Texas, and I was the treasurer, and I was also the Sankirtan leader, which was okay until all the brahmacharis got married and left. And I was the only brahmachari left in the temple. And I had to pay all the bills with my Sankirtan, with my book distribution. And at that time, we had no books. There was no such thing as distributing a big book. We only had Back to Godhead magazines. And we couldn't really get, at that time, if you could get $1 for a magazine, that was a big donation. unfortunately, the expenditures were not just $1. So, since I was the only Sankirtan devotee, quote, Sankirtan devotee left, the only one who was collecting any money, and I was also the treasurer, I felt obligated to go out, although sometimes I didn't want to. So one day I struggled to go downtown Dallas, and Dallas, Texas was not exactly the choice spot for distributing books in the world. They were full of cowboys. Cowboys, Dallas, Texas was famous at that time for cowboys. Cowboys were not exactly intellectual scholars, were searching for the absolute truth. They were more interested in finding out where the nearest bar was than where the nearest temple was. So I went downtown reluctantly, as a matter of duty. But when I got there, my consciousness changed and everyone looked very beautiful, like they had come from Vaikuntha. So my consciousness changed. And when I offered people a Back to Godhead magazine, they all happily took it, which was very surprising to me. It was some experience that people were reciprocating according to my consciousness more than anything else. So after having distributed all the books to all the beautiful people downtown, then I came back to what I thought was my normal consciousness. And I came back to what I believed was Dallas, Texas. So Krishna consciousness is our normal consciousness, being actually, as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Sarvabhutastama Atmanam Sarvabhutani Chatmani Ikshite Yoga Yuktatma Sarvatra Samadarshana. That a true yogi observes me in all beings, and also sees every being in me. Indeed, the self-realized soul sees me, the same Supreme Lord, everywhere. And for one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am never lost to him, nor is he ever lost to me. In other words, our books are not very complicated. We're complicated. And therefore it appears that our books are complicated. But Krishna keeps on saying the same thing over and over again, as explained in this purport, that everything is an expansion of Krishna and everything is under Krishna's control. The one thing that may not be, the one thing that's not under control is our minds, our ideas, at least not for ourselves. These ideas are being supplied to us according to our past activities, our mental conceptions of things. But if we're fortunate enough to hear from a pure devotee like Srila Prabhupada, read his books, or also hear the realizations of other devotees who have read his books and are practicing them, then by their enthusiasm, we might take up something about Krishna consciousness. Therefore, Prabhupada said, what sells my books on the street is the enthusiasm of the devotees. Most people don't come on the street looking for a book of ancient Vedic wisdom. They don't stop you and say, do you happen to know where I can find a book on ancient Vedic wisdom? No, they're looking for happiness. They're looking for knowledge of how to find happiness. They want to have perpetual happiness. as much as possible. So in one sense, they are looking for the devotee who's selling Bhagavad Gita, because this is their one chance to get happiness which goes on forever. Little do they know. And we can understand that many times it is actually not by chance that they come in contact with the devotee. And by the enthusiasm of the devotee, Srila Prabhupada said, when the devotee approaches such persons who are somewhat eligible to take the Krishna consciousness, when they see the enthusiasm of the devotees, they become struck with wonder, and then they're willing to buy a book. I remember one time I was asked to see if a certain airport would be a good place to distribute Srila Prabhupada's books. The BBT asked me to do that. I was working for the BBT at that time. I was one of their representatives. So this was San Antonio, Texas, which is a small airport. So I went there. It was an illegal airport. Now, I was not very enthusiastic about doing illegal spots because I had enough experience of getting arrested by the police in America, because book distribution was illegal, especially in Texas and other parts of southern part of southern states in America. So they regularly would arrest the devotees, and they were not very pleasant about it. In any case, I went there with the books. Of course, I didn't go with Dhoti and Tilak. I went dressed in gentlemanly clothes. But I was so intense because I didn't want to get caught and I wanted to distribute the books. And then I felt so empowered by Krishna that I was like amazed. I couldn't believe what was happening. And every person I went up to was so much struck, literally struck with wonder, that even without my asking them anything, just by putting the book in their hands, they took out their wallets and they gave me a donation. And I was feeling so intensely Krishna conscious that I realized that this is not me doing this. This must be Krishna doing it. In any case, I distributed my books and left, never went back to that airport. And I don't think they ever made it legal. It's too small. But I got the realization that everything depends upon how much we're desiring to fix our minds in devotional service and serve Krishna. And the more we do that, then the more we become an instrument for Krishna. And when we watch Krishna delivering the conditioned souls, not only they become struck by the intensity of Krishna's powers, but we also become amazed at how powerful Krishna is in delivering other conditioned souls, including ourselves. Therefore, faith is developed when we experience ourselves being an instrument for Krishna. Preliminarily, Krishna says that we hear, and if we hear about our eternality, if we hear about Paramatma within our heart, we have a friend and a guide with us. And if we ask him, he's very willing to, he's very happy to give us instructions of how to perform devotional service. If we recognize and accept his existence with us, and at the same time, accept that he's come in the form of Srila Prabhupada, he's come in the form of Srila Prabhupada's literature, as well as Prabhupada's representatives, that Krishna is present before us in the form of the Hare Krishna movement. If we accept that and listen and be willing to, as Krishna says, Tesham Sadatam Yuktanam Bhajantam Priti Purvakam Tadami Buddhi Yogam Tam Nyena Mam Upayanti Te. To those who are constantly devoted to worshiping me with love, then I give them the understanding of which they can come to me. In other words, if we have good association, and good association might mean just having Prabhupada's books and associating with Srila Prabhupada and Krishna by reading them, because Srila Prabhupada is directly speaking to us through his books. It's not that he's disappeared and left us some books. He's actually appearing in his books. As one reporter asked Srila Prabhupada, he said, who will take over your movement after you leave? So Prabhupada said, I'll never leave. I'll be with you in my books, and my followers will take advantage of them. So and then of course, those who are reading these books and following them, they're also manifestations of Prabhupada's mercy. And they can also connect us with the Guru Parampara, with Srila Prabhupada. But the most important thing is that connection, that whatever we're doing, if we do it in consciousness of not only Krishna, but also consciousness of Srila Prabhupada, Guru Parampara, and also those who are connecting us with Krishna. If we do any service with that attitude of servitorship to those devotees, then that's called our proper consciousness. And when we forget that we're the servants of the servants of the servants of Krishna, whatever we're doing is not complete. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada, when he was touring in South India, he used to meet persons who were reputed to be great devotees of Krishna. And if he asked them, who's your spiritual master? If they said they had none, they had no connection with any parampara. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada did not take them very seriously. It's like saying, I have a very wonderful electric fan. Unfortunately, either there's no plug to plug in or there's no place to plug the fan in, but it's a wonderful fan. If the fan is wonderful, that's good, but it should have some place to connect to, and it should have some means of connecting. Then the fan will work, will do its proper activity. Similarly, we're very fortunate if somehow or another, or sometime or another, we remember that we're connected to Krishna through the parampara. And therefore, we do our activities not only in consciousness of them, to please Krishna. Then that connection is called faith, but faith is not based upon blind faith. It's based upon the experience of Krishna consciousness. We may not be conscious of Krishna now completely, but when we apply the principles and we get more conscious of Krishna, that develops our faith. That experience of a higher taste by being a servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna is the taste, the experience, the reciprocation with Krishna and his devotees that inspire us to go on with devotional service and make further and further progress. As Prabhupada points out, that there are three classes of devotees. Now, in general, from my understanding, this particular verse is about going from the process of Shraddha to Nishtha. In other words, Srila Prabhupada is emphasizing here knowledge of scripture. Knowledge of scripture means ultimately knowledge of devotional service. As it says in the Bhagavad Gita, Yomam evam asamudo janati purushottama sasarvavit bhajante mam sarvabhavena bharata. Anyone who knows me as the Supreme Lord without doubting is said to be the knower of everything. And therefore he engages himself in full devotional service. Iti guyatama shastram idam yuktva mayanaga etam bhutva buddhimatsyat krita kritasvarata. That this is the most confidential part of all knowledge, that anyone who understands this will become wise, and his endeavors will know perfection. So it's not that we have to become great scholars, as we heard. Narada Muni was passing on this earth planet, and he came to one Brahmin. And the Brahmin said, "My dear Narada Muni, when you go to Vaikuntha, can you ask Lord Narayan when I'm going back to the spiritual world?" And Narada Muni said, "No problem." And then Narada Muni came across a cobbler, and the cobbler asked him the same question. Cobbler means one who makes shoes. That time, making shoes was not a very elegant business. It was quite a low-class business. You take skin from a dead cow and make shoes out of them. It wasn't the $350 sneakers they have nowadays. In any case, Narada Muni went to Vaikuntha, and there he met Lord Narayan. And before he left, he said, "Lord Narayan, I met two persons. One of them was inquiring, both of them inquired when they're going back to Vaikuntha, when they're going to the spiritual world." Lord Narayan told Narada Muni, "The Brahmin won't come back for many, many lifetimes. I can't even figure it out. And as far as the cobbler, he's coming back in this very lifetime." So Narada Muni is quite surprised, but the Brahmin is so pious, does so many sacrifices, chants so many mantras, so pure, washes his hands before he eats every time. So how is it that he's not going back to the spiritual world? And the cobbler, his occupation is not very Brahminical. He doesn't seem to be a learned scholar, and yet he's coming back to the spiritual world in this very lifetime, or after this very lifetime. So Lord Narayan said, "Well, you'll understand when they both ask you, what was Lord Narayan doing when you were speaking to him? So you tell them that he was threading an elephant through the eye of a needle." Narada Muni came back to the earth planet. He met the Brahmin. Brahmin said, "Oh, so nice to see you, Narada Muni. Have you been to Vaikuntha?" And so Narada Muni said, "Yes, I saw Narayan there." "And did you ask him," the Brahmin said, "when I'm going back to Godhead?" And Lord Narada Muni said, "Yes, Lord Narayan told me you're not going back until many, many, many lifetimes." He said, Lord Narayan said he couldn't even calculate it. So the Brahmin said, "What? That's not possible. I'm a pure Brahmin. I'm so elevated. By the way, did you really go to Vaikuntha?" Narada Muni said, "Yeah, I was there, there was Lord Narayan, there was Lakshmi Devi, the usual devotees." "Okay, well, you tell me, if you were actually in Vaikuntha, what was Lord Narayan doing when you saw him?" So Narada Muni said, "Well, amazingly enough, he was threading an elephant through the eye of a needle." So the Brahmin said, that's impossible. No one can thread an elephant through the eye of a needle. You're not truthful. You never went to Vaikuntha. You never saw Narayan. I'm going back to Godhead very soon. I know it because I'm a great devotee. Humble also, by the way. So Narada Muni came across the cobbler, and the cobbler was very happy to see Narada Muni. He said, thank you very much. Nice to see you again. Did you go to Vaikuntha? And Narada Muni said, yes, I was in Vaikuntha. And when am I going back to Godhead? Did you ask Lord Narayan that? He said, yes. He said, you're going back to Godhead in this very lifetime. The cobbler was very happy and said, since you saw my Lord in Vaikuntha, Lord Narayan, what was he doing? So Narada Muni told the cobbler, he was threading an elephant through the eye of a needle. So the cobbler became very ecstatic, was jumping and waving his hand. Oh, my Lord is so great. So Narada Muni said, what? You believe that? The cobbler said, of course, why not? My Lord could do anything. How do you know that? Well, I have personal experience. I live underneath this banyan tree, and in the banyan tree, there are millions and millions of seeds that fall down every year. And every seed, there's a little banyan tree. And therefore, every banyan tree has millions of banyan trees. So if my Lord can make millions of banyan trees in one banyan tree, why can't he thread an elephant through the eye of a needle? He can do anything he wants. So that's faith can only be is developed not blindly, but through observation and experience. When we see that the sun is rising at its appointed time and setting at its appointed time, how can we not know that there is a supreme intelligent person behind the universe? Can we actually believe the scientists who say everything is by accident? That by accident we're eating food and it's being digested, parts of it are being assimilated, and the unnecessary parts are being eliminated? Can it all be by accident? And can the persons who claim everything is by accident, do they really believe everything is by accident? Do they sit at home and they don't go to the university to get their degree? They believe that they can also get a degree by accident. They don't bother working because by accident they're going to become rich. They think they don't have to do anything, and by accident everything will happen. They don't believe in accidents. If two cars crash in the street and the police come and ask the witnesses what happened, and the witnesses said, don't worry about it, my dear police. It was just an accident. Police, oh, it was an accident. Well, I don't guess there's no cause behind it. I guess we can all go home. So they want to find out what the so-called accident, what caused it, or who caused it. When the insurance company comes and asks what happened, and they say it was an accident, and the insurance company says, who caused it? Well, it's causeless. It was a causeless accident. No one caused it. They won't accept that because they're intelligent to know that some person or persons caused the accident. So we see everything in the material universe going on so amazingly. How can we claim it's all by an accident? There's no intelligence behind it. So that's called knowledge. And with that knowledge, that produces faith. And with that faith, we perform devotional service. And if we do it sincerely under proper guidance, then we get the experience of Krishna consciousness, and that experience increases our faith and it enthuses us and enlivens us to perform more devotional service. Therefore, we don't have to change what we're doing. We have to change our consciousness by going from an accident consciousness to Krishna consciousness. And nothing is happening by accident. Everything is under the supreme control of Krishna. And it is not by accident that we're here, and it won't be by an accident we go back to Krishna. We have to remove from our consciousness all these accidents that everyone is claiming and take responsibility for our Krishna consciousness and do what's necessary to go back to Krishna and live actually happily forever in the spiritual world with him and with his devotees and him in the spiritual world. So I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions?
Guru Maharaj,
Yes.
uh, sorry, I don't know how to raise up the hand with the phone. You spoke about the proof of having faith is when Krishna act and use us as an instrument. But what happened? We really need to have a proof to believe and to have faith.
Well, right now, as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Prakrite Kriyamanani Gunai Karmani Sarvasha Ahankara Vimudatma Kartaham Iti Manyate. The bewildered spirit soul, under the influence of the three modes, thinks himself to be the doer of the activities which are actually carried out by the three modes of material nature. So he uses the word vimudha, vimudatma. So V means intensifier and mudha means a fool. So we're all super fools, as Prahlad Maharaj said, because we believe that we're the doers. Now, we may be the doer under the influence of the material energy. We may believe that, or we may believe that we're the doer under the influence of the spiritual energy. But in any case, we're simply the desire. And Krishna knows our desires because he can understand the flavor of a flower, but just like one can understand the flavor of a flower by smelling it. So Krishna understands our desires and he arranges either to manifest them through the spiritual energy in devotional service or through the material energy in the activities of sense gratification. In any case, we're the observer, we're the experiencer of the results of our desires, but we're not independent of either Krishna or either the material or the spiritual energy. That's simply our choice. Whether we want to live in this, exist and experience the spiritual energy, we want to experience the material energy.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. And just a little thing, and if something wrong happened with us, and we take that like the hand of Krishna, is that also a proof of our faith?
Yes, of course. Seeing it properly, not blindly. Not that Krishna doesn't like me, or Krishna had a bad day, he's taking it out on me. He got into a fight with Radharani, he had no one else to fight with, so he took it out on me just to get his frustration out. Tatenu kampam susamukshamano. Everything is happening by the will of Krishna, but he's sometimes giving us a reaction for our past misdeeds by giving us a little pinprick when we actually deserve the electric chair. just to wake us up and discourage us from doing things which are not very good for our devotional service. Thank
Thank you,
you,
Guru Maharaj.
Rinda Devi Dasi.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. I wanted to ask if do we have to think of us as servant of the servant in all our activities, or just in devotional activities?
Well, can you give me an example of something that shouldn't be devotional?
Like
yeah.
laundry, I don't know.
Yeah.
Doing like everyday activities. How
Well,
to
one
think,
time Lord Chaitanya was going to Pastul in the fields. And when he came back, he was holding his tongue. So there was a little boy named Gopal. He said, Gopal. Gopal said, Dear Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, why are you holding your tongue? So Lord Chaitanya said, well, I was out there, I was doing something very dirty, and I didn't want to chant Hare Krishna because I didn't want Krishna to be in such a dirty place. So Gopal said, no, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you should chant Hare Krishna all the time, 24 hours a day you should chant. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, yes, you're completely correct. He said, now Gopal, you're my guru. You've taught me actually what I should be doing. So then from then on, Gopal was known as Gopal Guru. Because although he was 5 years old, he instructed Lord Chaitanya that he should always chant Hare Krishna everywhere, whatever he was doing, even if he's doing something that's so hermetical, something a little dirty. Is that okay? Good. Thank you very much. Granthara Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Haribol.
Hare Bol.
Thank you so much,
Hare
Guru
Krishna.
Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Kumari. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ravanya Matri. Thank you, Anupama Prabhu. Thank you, everyone. Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you all, you God brothers and God sisters. Have a lovely week. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Guru Maharaj.